Hello, I am Jacob Folger, and I am an artist and a sculptor, and I also am really turned on by moss, and I do a lot of moss gardens and rainforest, personal rainforest gardens and things of that nature. It's raining today, and it let up for a little while this morning, and my dog and I, Lucy, went for a walk into the forest here in North Carolina outside of Raleigh. And we found some lovely little specimens of things that we could put into a forest, a rainforest or a personal rainforest. And that's what I'm going to show you today. But I just wanted to show you this array of things that I found this morning on my hike. All kinds of mosses and lichen there, and tiny baby ferns here, just all kinds of moss. I recently began trying to get into mushrooming, where I go around and collect wild mushrooms. I'm hoping to preserve them and at some point figure out a way to use them in some of my gardens. And so we will not be using these mushrooms today, but we will soon. I will soon be hopefully getting into that. You can see these mushrooms are amazing, brilliant colors, oranges and yellows, really quite nice. So we're going to get started, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. We're going to make a personal rainforest, and we're going to do it inside that jar right there. That whatever you use for your container, it should have good drainage. If it's a glass container with no drainage hole in the bottom, you're going to have to put some kind of pebbles or something like that in it. Here are some rocks and pebbles that I'll be using today. And then also the soil I'll be using. Now, moss does not require soil, but if you use no soil, sometimes you won't be able to allow enough moisture to get to the moss. Moss likes moisture, so I do use soil more often now than I used to. And also, of course, some of the other plants like the ferns and that sort of thing are going to require soil. Now, you don't have to buy soil. If you have a big old tree nearby, you can just go dig the soil out from underneath it and use that soil. It's probably better than any soil that you would buy. It's going to be nice and rich, and you can tell it's rich just by that dark brown color there, as you see. Okay, so we're going to get started here in a few minutes. The only other thing I could think that you would need is you might want to have a knife. Okay, a knife like that, a sharp knife, or a pair of scissors. And then when we're done, we're going to give it a nice misting, and that's usually how we'll be watering the forest later. Is with a water mister on a misting spray setting. In addition to that, you might want some various types of rocks to just work into the landscape of your garden or your forest. And seashells are nice too if you like those. And so we'll be doing that. One thing I want to show you, when I was out today, and I don't often find this, by the way, I do not often find this, is this wood here. This is a piece of bark, an old tree that has moss growing on it, and I do not find that very often, so I went ahead and collected some of that and plan on using it today. I think that will be just really lovely. And so we're going to get started here in just a minute. Okay, the first step is to take your jar or your glass vessel or whatever you're going to be using. If it does not have a drainage hole in the bottom, then we definitely have to put drainage in it. And all you have to do that is take rocks, and of course if it's glass, you want to do that. Gently put the rocks in there, covering the bottom. The smaller the rocks, really the better, because it just it's a tighter mesh, and it's better for drainage. So we'll get a good bit in there, maybe an inch or two to the bottom. placing them gently in the bottom there. And so then the moss will be happy, because if you do overwater, the soil will be lifted up now from the water. Just remember not to overwater above that. You shouldn't have to. I'll tell you how to water. It's very easy. It's misting as opposed to pouring water in. Pouring water in is the big mistake people make. Don't pour water in. You'll just miss it. I'll show you that in a little bit. The next part is the soil. You've got your nice organic soil here. You don't ever want to put any kind of chemicals into one of these. The atmosphere, it's still an atmosphere. It's a small atmosphere, and it's open, but it's still nevertheless an atmosphere, definitely created in there. And if you've got chemicals in there, you're just asking for trouble. You don't want to put any kind of chemicals inside one of these things. Okay. So we're going to start with that much soil. I might take some out and add some as I'm going to create my little landscape here. Okay, I'm going to adjust the camera. Okay, I'm just going to start. What I'm going to do is start looking at what I have here, and I probably want to create a little bit of, like, you know, not just one straight level. I mean, if you go out into the forest, you'll see it's moving. There's things that are up higher, things down lower. We don't have a lot of space in here, but I'm going to fill it up. I'm going to make it as busy as I can, because that's what it's like in the forest. I want to make it like that. I'm going to start with some of this moss-covered bark wood here. And I do want to actually let some of that be shown. This is a rare thing. Again, I don't find a lot of it where it's actually where you can just pluck it and take it when you're out foraging. So I want to kind of show that that I did find that. So I'm just going to put it like I found it, almost like right like that. When you're planting moss, you know, really, you don't need to like dig a hole for it or anything like that, because again, moss does not require soil as a rule. It does grow on soil sometimes, but it also grows on rocks and trees, as you can see here. So, you know, you can just push it down into the soil, and that's more than adequate. So I think that next I'm going to start with a fern, a little fern. I found these lovely little ferns out there today. As you can see, they're still wet from the rain from the earlier forage. And I'm going to have different ones. I think because I've got this big piece of moss here, I think I just want to have a little fern in there right now. And I want to leave the soil just around the roots. I don't want to like damage or mess with that, but I'll just take it out. I might clear a little space for it and set it down in there. And then push the dirt around it and pull the little leaves up and the little that. And doesn't that look pretty? It's already looking good. Okay, so then I have some really interesting lichen here. A long time ago, when I first started doing terrariums and that sort of thing, I bought some of this, and I paid a lot of money for it. This particular kind, they look like little funnels, and then the man told me that he didn't say they were, but he said they could be as much as 250 years old. I remember that quite clearly, and I found these today, and I want to go ahead and put some in. So sometimes I'll go ahead and clean off any dirt or that sort of thing that's on them, turn them upside down like that, and I'll just I'm not going to use all of this, but I'll break off a little piece of it. It's okay to break this up like this, because this is what it's doing. Is it looks like it's growing out of moss, very fine moss there. So I'm just going to put this down in here and try not to, you know, touch the lichen too much. I don't like to touch it too much. I'll push it down into the area that I want right there. And then I want to keep going here. There's all kinds of moss here. There's I know some of them, of course, are this kind here is a fern moss. It actually has like little ferns in it, or that's part of the moss itself. That's an option. And there's also this is a nice little patch of this very felt-like moss. I think I'm going to use a little bit of that. I'll use just a little bit. I'll take that off and you know, nice thing about this type of thing is that, of course, you can put some in, you can take it out, and you know, you can change your mind, and you can even change it later if you want to, as long as you don't, you know, tear it up and you're taking it apart. But also, it's the nice thing about these different types of things. If you notice, this moss on the piece of wood here is very dark. This one's lighter that I just put in. The lichen here that's light over here, it's a lighter color, almost a lime color, and then the fern has a whole different look altogether. Now, what is this doing? When you have light versus dark, you have contrast, and so when somebody looks into this, besides yourself, of course, when you look in, you're going to be just like engulfing the whole thing with your mind and your eyes. But some people may not do that. So when you do it like this, you are drawing attention to other parts of the atmosphere inside, of the landscape inside. So it's a good idea to use different colors if you can, or at least different textures. And then I'll show you some more ideas about that later. Now, I think, you know, this is just a creative process here, like anything else. I've got some more. This is more of that moss that was on the little tree. I'm just going to put a little piece of that in here. I really like that kind of texture. I'm going to put it around this fern here. There we are. So if I put something around the fern, or you know, I have to pick up the little twigs and that sort of thing. There's also, I have this this is another kind of moss. These are just beautiful. These are moss flowers, actually, and I'm going to be doing a video about these in a little while, because I can't do it today because it's too wet. But when these dry out a little bit, they're still alive. When they dry out and you spray them with water, they dance. And they dance. It's not, you know, a film trick or anything like that. I'm going to have a video on it. Watch out for it, because it's quite beautiful. I'll probably put it to music. Might even write the music myself. I am a musician, a little bit of one anyways. So here we go. So I'm just going to put some of this in here, again, to add a little bit more texture. And let's see, where else? Maybe here, I'll break it up a little bit and push that down into there. And then that's adding more texture and more color to the thing. And I might even put some of it up here. I think that would be nice. Yes, indeed. Okay, there it is. So now we've got a whole lot going on in here already. And take a look at some of this other. This is reindeer moss here. I like this, but I usually just leave it. It's kind of weird. I don't use it too much. I just don't know. But anyways, it's just, I think it's very pretty, but it's just not my cup of tea. Anyways, but I'm going to use some today. I'm going to put it down behind. I'm going to use some kind of tool here. Sometimes a poker or a pen or something like that makes it very easy to set moss down into little areas like that. And certainly if you have a jar that is, you know, enclosed, or like a carafe or decanter like that, you're going to have to create tools. And by the way, send me a message and I'll tell you how to save a boatload of money on that, or take a look at some of my videos, because I can show you how to use regular household tools. A lot of terrarium tools are very expensive, so just keep that in mind. You don't need to buy them. And let's see what we got here. I have another little fern here. I think I'm going to work into this landscape I'm going to put it right here. There we go. I'm kind of, whoops. Where'd you go? How'd you get down there? Okay. Let me get him now. Just pull him up. I was trying to pull out some junk in there and I got the whole fern. Okay, so, yeah, this is, you do not have to spend a lot of money on this. In fact, this jar I bought at the dollar store for $2. I mean, it's a big jar. It's lovely. It's like a vase, you know. It's, and you can get, you know, whatever your budget allows. But you can see clearly and you can buy moss and all that sort of thing online. I sell it also too. But you know, there's you can get the things that you need online mostly. Another thing I'd like to add from time to time is lichen. This is lichen here, and this is lichen here, and that just can kind of add to the whole atmosphere. So I think actually this one I'm going to break off a little bit here. Oops, I broke it more than I want to. Okay, and then I'm going to break off another piece here. But I'm leaving a little bit of the stick exposed so that people can see that it is on the stick. And then I think I'm just going to lay it, whoops, it is a little bit more than broken I wanted, but that's right. I'm going to lay it right in here. And that's pretty nice like that. And so it's coming along. I think what I might like to do is add another baby fern in there also. I've got this one here. This one actually, I just love it. It's really quite delightful when I go out and I'm doing my foraging and I love these ferns, by the way. I find these ferns growing out of a piece of moss, and there's even a piece of root here sticking out of it. I mean, this is just so rainforest. It's got it written all over it. So I'm just going to clean off some because there's really not enough room there for all of this. But I want to leave some of that moss and that stick and that root and all that up in there and put that right here. There we go. Now see, there's a whole bunch going on. We got all kinds of contrast. We got ferns, we got lichen over here, we've got all different kinds of moss, we've got wood in here from an old tree, we've got these lovely dancing flowers from moss as well, and I'd say we're nearing completion. I might like to just add a stone or two, you know. I like adding stones. I think in this case maybe something small, light colored, because there's a lot of dark things in here, so I'll just take maybe a small stone or two and press them down in there. There we go. Maybe another small one, if I can find one around here. There we go. And I'll just put that right here. Wow. Yep, it's looking quite nice. There's also some space up in here, and by the way, moss not only does it not have to require earth, but it does not have to be flat. It can be like this. Obviously it's on this tree, so I have the space in here. I actually, you know what, let's look at that real quick before I mess it all up. Look at that. You can see the tree in there, the wood. I'm leaving that. I'm not going to mess with that. I was going to fill it in with some moss, but I'm not going to do that. That's just going to mess with it. This is just, I think this is where it needs to be. I might like to put another rock in there somewhere. And you know, I do this all the time, so I get stuff all over the place. But here's some. I'll just put this. I'm thinking back in here. I don't want to mess with the reindeer moss too much that I had just put in there. I'm going to pull that forward a little bit with my little tool here and just put the rock in there. sometimes just putting rocks in it just makes it far more natural looking. And I think a rock here too would be very nice. So I'll just do that right here. And there we are. Isn't that nice? Okay. That is how you make a personal rainforest. And if you would like to learn more about the various types of art that I do, my name is Jacob Folger. My channel is The Jake Folger on YouTube, and please subscribe to my channel. Oh, finally, just a few things. You're going to want to mist it. After you do all this, it's, you know, it's a little jumbled, and it's going to have to settle a little bit into the container. So it's nice to give it a nice misting, but not overdoing it. Keep in mind, you never want the water level to get above those rocks. So you've got to be careful about how much water you put into it, because the only way you can get it out is either with a straw, and it probably won't taste very good, or you would have to tip it. If you tip it, of course, you might upend the whole thing. And so there you have it. So I just give it a nice little misting here. And that actually just makes it even more beautiful. Head over heels in love with this type of thing. It's a lovely hobby. It's fun. It gets you out into the woods. It gets you active with your family, or with your dog, or with your pets, or with yourself. If you have, by the way, if you have backache issues, man, it really does. I have issues like that, and I'll tell you what, if I go out for a foraging or hike or walk in the woods, it does seem to certainly lift it. So I don't like to put painkillers into my body, so, you know, that's just great for me. It's good, healthy fun, and I've also found that moss in itself has, they say it has energies, and I believe it does, because if I'm feeling badly and I put my hands on it, or I do make a garden or something like that, or work on one of my gardens or my forests, I always end up feeling better. So keep that in mind. This is the finished garden that I just did. As you can see, just actually forest. It's a rainforest, and you can see it's just like you might see out right in the rainforest. I'm actually gonna out in the forest, you know, here in North Carolina and in many areas, parts of the country. I'm going to include with this this video some pictures of some of the pictures I've taken in there. I'm avid photographer of nature, and I actually took one this morning of this fern growing out of a tree. It's a live tree, but it has like this root system down below it, and this pocket or hole in there, and this lovely fern was growing out of it. Very nice, and I took a picture of that. I didn't disturb it. Sometimes I don't, you know, I don't want to like take everything that I see in there. I don't really want to mess with it at all, but this is one of my passions, and I like bringing it to people and showing them. This is just an amazing, wonderful way to express yourself and experience life.